Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest today is Casey Stubbs. We're going to talk about some powerful mindset stuff as it relates to being a business owner and when it comes to investing in your wealth. Welcome to the show, Casey.
Thank you for having me, Alicia. I appreciate it.
So now let's start by talking a little bit about what you got going on. I know you wear a lot of hats. So I'm curious how well you're gonna compact that all into like a short little bit about your business, but let's give it a shot and let our listeners know what you got going on.
Well, right before this interview, I was in a class about simplifying our lives. So let's see if I can take the lesson to heart. So I run a business where I host a podcast where I teach people about trading and investing. My website teaches people about trading and investing. And I have an online marketing service where I run traffic through emails and sell advertising about trading and investing.
All right. That was great. Good job. Very simplified. And yet, you didn't lose anything there. So before we even get into some of like the nitty-gritty stuff that I want to ask you, I do want to start this conversation around the subject of investing to become wealthy. So a lot of business owners are so busy in the day-to-day, just trying to, increase their revenue and day-to-day operations. And a lot of people haven't really adopted the mindset of creating wealth for themselves. And so they're really just living paycheck to paycheck in a lot of respects, just like a 9-to-5 employee is doing. And there is a lot to be said about the mindset shifts that we have to go through as business owners to even start thinking like a business owner versus an employee. And then, of course, the mindset shifts that we adopt when we actually start to think like somebody who is accumulating wealth rather than just always focusing on increasing your paycheck. So I'm going to hand this over to you because I'd love for you to share your thoughts on that really important series of mindset shifts that people really do need to embody in order to be successful when it comes to business and investing.
Well, I just had this conversation, so it ties up really great. And I think the biggest thing about investing, and this is like you can interweave this with investing or being a business owner, because running a business is an investment. You're investing in your clients, you're investing in your life, you're trying to take what you're creating and you want it to build and return something. But the thing is, it really is mindset. So if we look at investments, you put your money to work, right? You take your money and you treat money as a tool, right? And that is very important that whatever you have, you evaluate and you say, this is a tool and I want to deploy this to give me some returns. And having that mindset is critical. Understanding that money is a tool. It's not good. It's not evil. It's a tool that we can use to create more wealth. And it's powerful. It's leverage. When you take that, you take it and it starts to compound. Compounding revenues is really how people get wealthy. Is they put $1 to work. There's a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. They put $1 to work and it comes back and you get $2, right? And it's just that concept. You put $2 to work, it comes back and you get $4. And I'm just going to end it with this. Most people in the world do the exact opposite. They are compounding their debt, right? They're buying more stuff. They're not using their money to work for them. They're working for their money and they're becoming in a cycle and they get slave and then they end up getting burnt out, overwhelmed, and they crash and burn. I don't understand why most people do the opposite, but it's the truth. Business owners do it. Consumers do it. Everyone, especially in the United States, we have a big problem with this.
Well, I will just put in my 2 cents on why people do that. So most of us are not growing up in environments that teach how to actually use money. We categorically are growing up in low to middle class families who are basically just getting by. And it's either, do we have the money for that or don't we have the money for that? Oh, we just got a little bit more money. Let's go spend it on that thing that we've been wanting for a very, very long time, or the new clothes that are a little bit overdue or whatever. And so it literally is conditioned into most people to have this sort of dysfunctional relationship with money. And then they're hearing things like, oh yeah, invest, take 10% and invest it. Well, they're not conditioned to do that. So all of their subconscious warning bells are going off saying, I can't do that. I can't afford that. I need that 10% for surviving, or the newest iPhone, or whatever the thing is. And it takes a lot of self-discipline to start to break those old money mindset habits and patterns and start to establish some new ones. And changing the subconscious is not the easiest thing to do. So the moment that most people embark on, maybe they're dabbling a little bit, right, in stocks or whatever, and it doesn't give them this glorious, return. And so they just get discouraged and give up, rather than actually seeing it through and learning and honing their skills and, getting to that next level.
Yeah, that's a great point. I really see that all the time. They want results, they want it quickly, and then if it doesn't happen fast enough, it just doesn't work, and then they end up pulling everything out. And I always try to remind people, I said, if you're successful in investing, that's great, but don't quit, don't give up. I've seen people be really successful. They take all their money out and they buy a truck or something. And I said, well, I hope you enjoy your $1 million truck, because that's what it actually cost you to pull your money out of the market, because you're leveraging against future returns that you could have received just because you wanted that thing really quick.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So what I just said might seem a little bit doom and gloom for some people, but I actually believe that as business owners, we are wired to be able to create those types of shifts for ourselves. Our willingness and ability to take risks and to kind of get beat down and keep picking ourselves up and keep building and growing is a type of resilience that a lot of people really don't have. And now we just need to sort of shift that. We need to bridge the gap, right? And shift that same tenacity and drive over into other areas of our life, like creating long-term wealth, or learning how to start to really make money work for you. So now this is really your area of expertise. I mean, you got the podcast, you've got the website, you're in this 100%. You've got a new book that's going to be coming out later this year. So for our listeners who perhaps have dabbled in the past, or maybe they're dabbling a little bit right now, and they're like, you know what? I want to start putting my money to work for me. I want to get more serious. Any beginner level tips that maybe you can share with our listeners, how to get started and how to not give up too soon?
So the first thing is just do your research and come up with a plan. And when you're putting your money to work, you want to label it and what you want to accomplish, right? So if your goal is to take out some money to buy a truck, that's great. You just know what it is on the front end. So having a clear end point, and they'll tell you that in everything, having an end goal is really critical, because I always start my planning in the end and then I zoom in slowly. So I'll look at a 10-year plan, a 1 year, 5 year, or weekly, and then just zoom in and out, because while you're going, you got to look at the big picture, but you have to know the steps, right? You're looking down at your feet as you go. So that's the first thing. Second thing is just get educated, listen to some podcasts, sign up for some courses, read some articles, nobody's going to care more about your own money than you. Educate yourself. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the market. It could be in many different areas. There's investment in real estate. There's investment in the markets. There's investing in businesses. There's so many different areas you can do, but just do the research and invest. The biggest investment that we can do is investing in yourself. I always take time and money to invest in myself because that's going to yield the biggest results more than anything else. So I think those three things are great points on how for people to get started.
Now, when someone is looking for a reliable source for that type of information, you mentioned your podcast. Can you tell us the name of your podcast?
My podcast is called How to Trade It, and I interview investors and traders, try to find really successful people. And the way that I do it is I want them to be able to share some clear, actionable tips for people so that they can get something from it in a very short episode.
Love it. So right there, one really valuable resource for people to start honing their money muscle. When we're talking about mindset and how people have a tendency to kind of get tripped up on these things, I'm curious if you've seen some really common tripping points for people, something that kind of all walks of life. It's very, very frequent that you see this limiting belief or this old pattern show up. What are some of those things that you're seeing people clearly getting in their own way over?
So the thing that I think I run into the most is that people might be in some financial pain and they're looking for an escape. So they come in, they want to get into the market because maybe they have a little bit of money and they're hoping that if they get an investment that could turn things around and change their life. Okay. Now, the problem with that is it's a mindset thing. They're looking for an escape. They're looking for something to solve their problem. And it's almost the same as just going to the casino and playing the lottery or something like that. They're looking for that thing that's going to solve the problem. But here's the thing. If they go in and they win the lottery, that's really not going to solve their problem. The statistics have proven that people that win the lottery end up many times worse off because they don't have a container, right? In order for wealthy people, they have to have a container. It's capacity within themselves. And if they don't have that capacity to hold it, it's not going to work. So you have to be able, before you even get in there, you got to have the mindset that says, this is a long-term game and I have to solve a financial problem. I have a financial problem and I have to solve that problem. But going in there and making money isn't going to solve the problem. I have to do the work to solve it. And so with that being said, I'm just curious, what else would you say you found in your working experience of financial and mindset problems that people have?
No, money mindset is a huge, huge, huge topic for people. It doesn't matter if the client that I'm working with has a multi-million-dollar business or they are sort of bootstrapping it and, kind of in those early stages and really doing the heavy lifting to get some momentum going. Fear around money is so conditioned into people. Fear of losing it will actually, in many cases, cause people to self-sabotage even making it. It's ridiculous. Right? So you've got people who are also conditioned to believe that aspiring to have more money is somehow makes them a bad person. And that is oftentimes a deeper rooted one. It's, from sometimes spiritual, religious conditioning. Sometimes it's, family conditioning reinforced. But when we have these opposing beliefs, we're basically in this constant battle with ourselves. And it's all happening on this, deeper level of the mind. So consciously, it makes so much sense. Grow your business, grow your wealth. Just duh, right? I mean, it's so obvious. And yet most people are blocking themselves in all of these stupid ways. So they get money and then they've had this really good intention. Maybe I'm going to invest in something for my business, or I'm going to, do this thing that I really believe is going to take me to the next level, whether it's investing in themselves, investing in their business, investing in whatever. They get the money, and what do they do with it? They just completely blow it on dumb shit. And that is a form of self-sabotage. And then you've got to look at why, what's the reason for that? Is it just simply a bad habit? Well, maybe a little bit, but oftentimes it's more deeper rooted. There's something like the lottery winners, right? There's some kind of deep rooted false limiting belief that they're not worthy of it. They didn't earn it. They didn't work hard enough. They didn't do this, or that the way that they, on some level, believed they needed to in order to be worthy of having. And we've got to be willing to look at all those things. It's a little unique for everyone, but categorically, it's a lot of the same crap. It's shame around having it, shame around not having enough. It is guilt for having it, guilt for not having enough. It is all kinds of wacky stuff, right? How is my family going to feel? Is my mom going to be mad at me because of all those things that she always said about rich people? It's all that stuff that we've got to be willing to get in there and clean up.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And when you mention self-sabotage, that's actually, I have a checklist that I go through every day. And that's one of the questions that I ask myself, like, okay, am I going to do anything that's sabotaging myself? Is there anything? I'm always asking myself questions and trying to teach other people to ask themselves that too. Like, what was the one thing I did yesterday that was a self-sabotage, and how can I not do that today? Just being aware of that, I found, has helped me out a lot.
A lot of people are not really mindful of the thoughts they're thinking, the actions they're taking, their intentions, their motivations, and they're really operating on those old sort of default programs. A lot of people use sort of this kind of cliche language, right? We're operating on autopilot. Well, that's the way that we're designed. And if we don't mindfully, intentionally change our programming, you're just going to keep creating the same shit that you've always created. So we have to be more mindful, and we have to be a little bit more diligent. We have to be a little bit more intentional, and we have to start setting some new goals and start working on programming ourselves to really truly be, to feel, to embody the version of us that we really are aspiring to be in life, because it doesn't just happen by accident.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Take some time and get some programming. We have triggers and we're just automatically doing things and we don't even know why. And so how do you recommend that people begin to start discovering some of those things?
Oh, well, now see what happened here. The podcaster in you just came out and you flipped into. So we can feel it. And when we are intentional about noticing when we feel negative emotion or some type of resistance or fear, it's a visceral thing. It is a physical sensation. It's not just a mental, emotional one, but we do experience that way as well. And that is very telling, because it's not normal to just have random fears surfacing or intense self-doubt that causes us to be second guessing ourselves. That is usually an indicator that there is a limiting belief that needs attention. So we have inner guidance. We've got that gut instinct. If you're walking down the road and all of a sudden you get a bad vibe, that oftentimes is pretty accurate. It's like, hey, be a little cautious because right up around the bend, something doesn't look right, doesn't feel right up there. That's inner guidance. That's different. It actually feels different to interpret our inner guidance than it does to be triggered by a fear or self-doubt that is directly coming from a limiting belief. Those types of fears are often, it's different. It's a different sensation. And if we look at why, you really, like you said, ask yourself the right types of questions. What's going on here? What am I feeling? What about this thing that I'm doing or thinking about is causing me to feel this apprehension? Well, now you can actually see more clearly and objectively what your pre-existing pattern is, your pre-existing programming. So when it comes to investing in your business, a lot of people are very apprehensive about spending money because there's all this risk, right? So your inner guidance is going to feel like something about this just doesn't feel right. An old limiting belief is going to be something that involves an old story in many cases. Oh, you remember that time when? Well, ding, ding, ding. Now you've got something that you really can genuinely look at objectively and start to clean up. And that distinction right there in and of itself is a really, really, really powerful tool to begin taking control of what your mind does. Because otherwise, like we said, it's doing its thing, and you sometimes don't even know why, but you just keep creating the same patterns, the same shit over and over and over and over again. And somehow you've got to break that cycle.
Yeah, so when you say that we do the same thing over and over again, but it's kind of a tricky to me because if we go back and we look at that thing that, like, oh, I invested money once and it didn't work, right? There's that saying that says if we do the same thing over, we got to change because we're going to get the same result, right? If you do the same thing, you're going to get the same result. But in investing or investing in your business, investing in yourself, you might need to do the same thing again. And
Well,
so that's kind of like, how do you evaluate that?
So there's a metaphysical principle in this, and that comes down to there's that distinction between when your inner guidance is saying, okay, we took a crack at it, but we don't just jump to a conclusion, right? You go and you play a slot machine. If you don't hit the jackpot, you don't say, oh, that's it, wasn't meant to be, and get up and walk away. No, any logical person is going to say, okay, well, that wasn't the one. Let's try a different one, right? Not the best analogy.
Well, especially
right?
If you know that the house has an edge and eventually you're going to lose all your money, but that's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother story. But, that'd be like saying, okay, well, I know that my toddler is going to learn how to walk. But, they fell on their ass the past 5 times. So maybe they're just different. Yeah. No, they're not different, right? You don't give up, you just keep going. But now what I'm referring to doing the same thing over and over again is you'll notice there's probably a pattern. And the pattern is probably, do you give up too soon? Or are you not doing your research? Or are you self-sabotaging in some way? And that's the piece that I'm referring to here, because when your mindset changes, then the way that you think about it, you feel about it, the way that you take actions moving forward is a little bit different. You've got different energy, different mindset, different way of looking at things. And sometimes you're more open and receptive to the things that do need to change versus when it's just a matter of don't give up so soon.
Yeah, that's very true. And being able to change is so important. And one of my mentors said that as a business owner, you need to put yourself in a box, or else your circumstances, or else your life or the business or something will determine that life for you. And what I mean, or what he meant by putting you in a box, is forcing yourself, put yourself in a box, force yourself to change, force yourself to look at the problem, force yourself to do what is necessary, or else the world will put demands on you and you won't be able to do that.
It's powerful. And that goes back to the old principle of taking 100% responsibility for yourself. And it's a mindset shift that is absolutely critical to success. That willingness to say, hey, this is not working in my life. That means something's got to change within me. Let's look at what that is.
Yeah, it's so easy to have an excuse, because everything that fails or every problem, there's always a million excuses. And it's also easy to blame someone else or something else. Excuses and blame is very easy, but if you're going to be successful, you have to take responsibility and say, hey, maybe it wasn't even my fault, but I got to take ownership of this. The buck stops with me.
It's the only way to be empowered in your life. So then let's talk a little bit about your mindset journey as an entrepreneur, because you've obviously gone through some of your own challenges, identified some of your old patterns. And one of the things that I love when my guests share is a mindset obstacle that you've personally worked through and overcome to get to where you are. It's so relatable for people who are listening, who in many cases have a tendency to feel like their problem is exclusive or unique to them. So are you willing to share with us something that you've had to overcome on your journey?
Sure. I think one of the things that business owners get into, and this does play into investing as well, but it's your time, right? You think that if you work more, that you're going to get a better result. And that is just not true, right? It's a false belief. It's a limiting belief, and it's counterintuitive. But the truth is, you should really plan your time out and give yourself less time for work and more time for the other things that energize your life and to help you plan the life and do the things that you want to do. So the biggest thing that for me was taking risks. So I was working nonstop, right? Work, 7 days a week, very long days. And if I didn't have enough money or if things weren't going right, I'm like, I'm just going to work more, right? And so the thing is, though, is you get yourself into a pattern. Just like you're saying, it's a pattern. It's a workaholic pattern, and everything else in your life is starting to fall apart, and you're not even noticing any really success in your business. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I got to stop this, right? So I got to have a belief that I can get the things in my life and accomplish them that I want to accomplish in business in a limited number of time. And so I had to force myself and take those days off and mark them on my calendar and put them as unavailable. A lot of business owners think that they are going to start a business and they're going to have more time, and then they're really shocked that they actually have less. And it's because they don't put the boundaries on them. And so I did that as an act of faith, and it was very difficult. But after a time, I adapted, and now I'm slowly getting even less and less time in the office and working and getting better results.
I love that. I also am a recovered workaholic.
Entrepreneurs usually are. That's some of the things that we usually have in common.
It's so true. And I've noticed that there definitely is a correlation between when we are in a period of scarcity and we're trying to overcompensate for that fear by trying harder, working more. And I can say from my experience personally, as well as what I've seen with clients and with colleagues, that once you go down that slippery slope of trying to outwork your fear, outwork your scarcity mindset, it does not get you the results that you're hoping for. On a metaphysical level, you're not a vibrational match to it. You're in the vibration of scarcity. Your mindset is scarcity. everything that you are basically putting into the work that you're doing is crappy ass energy. And so if this law of vibration is real, and it is, then it makes so much sense, right? If you are putting all of that scarcity energy, all of that fear-based energy, all of that negative stress and overwork and burnout and not taking care of yourself and not enjoying your life energy into the universe, what are you going to get back? All of a sudden you're going to, strike it rich? Probably not.
That's the law of reaping and sowing, right?
So it's a really valuable thing to address. Maybe we can help somebody to break that cycle. It's a downhill slide, and it is a little bit counterintuitive because most of us that grew up kind of working class is you put in the hours, you get paid. Well, as business owners, that's not always the case. And so it's not so much about just simply sitting at your desk and laboring away. It is the quality of what you're doing in alignment with what you want to create, with your goals, with your vision, with your objective for your life and your business. And that is that inner work. You got to get the inner game right in order to actually start to really get the outer game right.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I totally agree. We have to get our inner game right. We have to take care of ourselves. So critical, and it's not a factor of how much time you work. It's the quality, and it's the strategy, and it's using those leverage points. Just like with investing, you leverage your money, you want to leverage your time, you want to leverage your resources, and use those well, and you can get exponential returns in your business, in your trading, in your investing, and everything.
Love it. Okay, Casey, how can our listeners connect with you, learn more about you, find your podcast, find your website, all that good stuff?
Well, they can find me at tradingstrategyguides.com, and there's my podcast, and all the information about me is on my webpage.
Excellent. I want to thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a fun conversation. Lots of gold nuggets for our listeners today.
Thank you.
And of course, got to thank all of our listeners. We're doing this for you. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.